If you're a heat and air conditioning technician or even a salesperson, what is reverse scope creep and why does it matter? This is a fantastic question. I'm Scott Bell, coming to you live for HVAC Technician Sales Secrets on a perfect day to talk about sales and business and a fantastic day to talk about you. I'm coming to you live from Sacramento. All right, so scope creep is this in business. Let's say that you're a consultant, or let's say that you sell a project and you say, I'm going to take care of 10 items. And sometimes the buyer or the client will come back to you and go, hey, I know we agreed on 10 things, but would you mind just kind of taking care of these 2 more? And you go, yeah, that seems reasonable. Let's go ahead and do that. Okay, and then they come to you and they're like, hey, I know that we originally agreed to these 10 things and you said you would do these 2 more. It's really not that much work to do 2 more things. And you're like, that doesn't sound unreasonable. That doesn't sound like that's an issue, so let's go ahead and do it. So that's one example. Second example is you sell a contract to do some sort of install, and the install includes a scope of work of 10 items. And then the buyer comes to you and goes, hey, could you throw in a warranty? Could you throw in an upgrade? And so what scope creep is like, look, we defined a rule, responsibilities, a list of actions, things that we were going to do, things that you were going to do. And, there's a point where people will start to take advantage of that. And the same is true in relationships that you have with people, because there's times where people come to me and say, hey, Scott, here's all the things that I would like to have you do. And we may negotiate, and I may say, hey, out of all those 20 things, I only want to do 14 of them. Okay. And this could be personal boundaries. This doesn't have to be like business. This could be like, a friend asks you a favor. Can you come help me move my entire house and spend all day doing it? I mean, I can't do all day, but I might spend 4 hours. Okay. So scope creep would be like you get there and they're like, yeah, the movers just didn't show up. Could you just do 2 more? So setting boundaries in business and setting boundaries in your personal life, there's nothing wrong with that. Because here's the thing, when you don't set boundaries, you end up with resentment. You resent the people, you resent the process, you resent the product, you resent everything that's going on, and it causes an issue with the relationship, okay? And this right here is why you should join my email publication. Go to this URL right above my head and type in your name, your email address, maybe your phone number. I'll give you the goods on the Facebook group and on the YouTube channel. So here's the thing, reverse scope creep is this. You work for company A, and company A says, hey, here's the scope of work that we want you to do. And there's 10 items. They're like, great, 10 items. And they come to you and they're like, hey, would you mind doing 2 more? And you're like, yeah, not completely reasonable. We could do 2 more. And then in your mind, you're like, hey, well, there's 4 other things that really need to be done. So on your own, you decide like, hey, I'm going to go ahead and envelop these 4 things. So what originally started at 10 items, 10 now is 16. And there was no ground rules. There was no like, hey, here's what we're going to do. And here's what the expectations are. And this is my stop date. Well, a lot of times what will happen, especially with projects, especially with employees, especially in sales, is sometimes we accept responsibilities that aren't ours. And in a relationship, if I come to you and I'm like, hey, here's the 10 things that I want you to do, and oh, by the way, there's 10 more that I want you to accept that's not you, that you didn't agree to, you're probably going to go, no, I'm not going to do that. That's not cool. That's not what I'm going to do. Let's put some boundaries, right? Let's put some boundaries in this. And so you as a salesperson, you as an entrepreneur really need to think through the items that you accept to do. Now, I'm not saying, hey, I'm going to do some extra stuff. I'm not saying, hey, there's some stuff that I'm going to help you out with. But you do have to be aware that sometimes you, me, everybody else, we don't put those boundaries in place. Like you can see me, I'm just kind of pushing my arms out in front of me. It doesn't really translate on video, but I'm pushing my arms out in front of me like going, wait a minute, we need to put some boundaries here. There's nothing wrong with building business boundaries. There's nothing wrong with saying, hey, there's a couple of things I'm going to do. But there is danger in accepting responsibilities that are not yours. And, you may work for an organization or work with somebody for a couple of years. And what started out with 10 items is now 20, and that's the expectation, right? So it's going to take clear communication. It's going to take clear, like, hey, wait a minute, we need to have a conversation about what my expectations are and your expectations. And so let's say that you are a salesperson, right? And this happens a lot. You get really good at sales, and sometimes the company will come to you and go, hey, can you train salespeople? Well, that's a role above and beyond what my scope of work is, and that takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of energy to train people, especially if you get a lot of hours in front of a room, or you're using up all your mental bandwidth before a sales process. And so let's say that you agree to it, and you're like, yeah, let's go ahead. I'll do some sales training. Well, you didn't make an arrangement, you didn't get compensated for it, and then like 6 months later, you're like, these guys are crushing it. They're making a ton of money. How come I'm not getting paid? Well, because you didn't set that boundary. Like, hey, wait, are you asking me to do that? Like, this is like where good questions really help you out. So let's say that I'm meeting with you, and you are my superior, you're my boss, you're my El Jefe, and you come to me and you're like, hey, Scott, we would like to have you train, some salespeople. I go, great. Is this like an ongoing thing? Is this something that I'm going to be compensated for? No, we just kind of want to see if we can get this to work. We're going to do it as a beta program. Okay, so we're going to set defined rules that this is going to happen once or twice. No, we're just going to do it as an ongoing thing. Like, it's okay for you to ask questions. It's okay for you to go, wait a minute, where does this leave room for me? Where do I get to, get my time compensated for? Where do I get to get my work compensated for? Right? And like sometimes people they'll guilt trip you. My grandmother, Grandma Amy, she invented guilt. So like that stuff doesn't work on me. Like I start hearing people guilt me and I'm like, nope, not having it. Right? Boundary. I'm gonna push that boundary way out. Don't you guilt trip me. Well, hey, sales dude, hey, sales chick, here's all the cool things that we gave you. Now it's your turn to reciprocate. I'm like, you're a business, you made profit, pay somebody, right? Pay somebody, bring somebody in, pay them. I know this really cool guy, Scott Sullivan Bell, that you could probably pay, and he would love to come train your people under the right amount of money and circumstances. Be aware that there's a time and place for you to accept responsibilities and say, hey, look, I'd love to help out under these conditions, under this time period. And if that changes, then we're going to we have a conversation about compensation. We're going to have a conversation about what needs to be done. Now, you're like, hey, Scott, does this work with clients? You're darn right it does, because like there's going to be a point where, like, let's say I do a ton of consulting, right? Somebody comes to me and says, hey, Scott, I want to purchase a package of consulting. It's for X amount of money. Let's give you random numbers, $5,000 a month for 6 months, okay? And we know that that's going to be 5 hours of consulting, $5,000 a month for 6 months. All right, great. Hey, Scott, we're kind of in a jam. We're kind of in a pickle. Can we pay you, what we're going to pay you 1 month? Can we pay you the next month? And let's say I say, yeah, but understand that like this is a one and done situation. And then they come to me again and go, hey, Scott, we know we owe you 10 grand, but like things are really tight. Can we put this off another month? I might go, hey, you got a credit card with some room on it? Because there's some video gear that I want that's worth about 10 grand. You got some credit card points worth about 12 grand? Because I'm going to go to Tahiti and stay in a glass bottom hut, right? So sometimes you may have to learn how to make a deal to set those boundaries, but it is a negotiation. And sometimes people are going to step over your negotiation boundaries. And sometimes you're going to step over yourself and create your own problem. This is why you got to get really good at saying what's acceptable for me, and this is acceptable for you. Okay. So start watching this dynamic. Start watching for the people who aren't good at setting boundaries. They get crushed. Right. And then they're the people who are like, this isn't fair. I don't like it, because maybe they didn't know, or maybe they have some self-esteem issues, or maybe it's a struggle for them. There's a lot of things that happen in life. I'm not knocking anybody. I'm just saying, start paying attention for the people who say, hey, I feel like I was harmed. Okay, it could have happened, but was it that person's fault? Did they have a bad acceptance of boundaries? Did they have reverse scope creep? Perfect question to ask. You got one of three things to do from here, just one of three. First, subscribe, right? That's always cool. 2, send this out to a friend. 3, leave a comment. We'll see you soon. Thanks for watching.